So whenever we look at some of these terms, let me see how I can do this. I'll look kind of just briefly with you at the concepts of the tenses. The present tense is mainly the idea of continuing action in present time. Okay. It can have some other meanings, which I'm not going to go into, but those other meanings, whenever I have a principle of hermeneutics, and I must have a principle of hermeneutics whenever I go through my study of the Bible, the first is to take the normal and customary meaning of a word and its tenses, its moods, etc. I need to take those in their normal customary usage. All right. So the normal customary usage of words, like in the present tense, it's continuing action that it's in present time and it's continuing to occur or keep on doing something, etc. The imperfect tense means it's an action in the past, but it was ongoing. All right. An action in the past that was ongoing. You know, we went down to the restaurant and we were eating a meal with them, meaning that it was an extended time going on. We were eating, and it might have taken us a little while, but it's continuing to go on. And that's a kind of a poor example, but it's the idea of continuing action going on in the past. The perfect tense, however, is different. The perfect tense means it was an action that went on in the past with continuing consequences or continuing results. The aorist simply means something happened. Generally, it is used to speak of the past. And in other words, something that happened in the past that's finished. But it could have encompassed 3 centuries. It could have encompassed a long period of time, but in the aorist, it's referring to it as just something that happened in the past. It's not talking about whether it was ongoing or not. That has nothing to do with it. It has happened in the past. The aorist also can have other meanings dealing with even present day things. Let me give you an example of a perfect tense, and that'll give you in the New Testament, you will also, you'll often read, even as it is written. Are you familiar with that kind of phrase, as it is written? Those will normally be, in fact, almost all that I can think of, those will normally be in the perfect tense. It doesn't mean they're presently being, even though the English uses the word is, it doesn't mean that they're presently being written. It means it was written in the past and it continues to be with us today. Where something was written and it continues to be with us today. That's the perfect tense. But if I want to speak of something that has simply happened, and really the aorist tense, for the most of the time, it's the tense that's used to speak of something in the past that's already occurred. It's finished. It can also mean, however, since the aorist tense is not so much a time thing, that must be taken from the context. The aorist is more of a just completed action, even if it's now. And you can see different ways and that it's set together with respect to its timing, though it is most often the word used for a past tense of something that's been completed in the past. Let's look for a second here, though. When it shall come to pass, whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved. And you see that in Acts 22 and verse 16. You see it in a participle. Now, there's something you need to realize about participles and main verbs. Let me see if I can show you something here. I'll see if I've got it. Yes. Can you look on the screen and see me holding a book?
Yes.
Can you see the name of that book?
Greek Grammar by Wallace.
Yeah. Can you see the small letters underneath it there, underneath Greek Grammar?
The Hermeneutics.
I can't. Now
Yeah.
I can see it.
What does that say?
An exegetical syntax of the New Testament.
Okay, Greek Grammar, and what's the next words?
Beyond the
beyond.
the basics. Whenever you're taking grammar, whenever you're taking Greek, you're going to be given a basic concept to use. But you need to realize when it talks about an exegetical syntax of the New Testament, by the way, the author, I'll bring it up here again. Can you see his name?
Daniel B. Wallace.
Daniel Wallace. And I'd recommend you get that as you study it, because what he does is he'll take the aorist and he'll peel it apart for you, and he'll show you across the New Testament the ways that it is used, okay? There's also something else. There in the syntax of the New Testament, sometimes it's not merely the fact that something is an aorist tense or something, it's how they are brought together. One of the most difficult things that happened to me when I first went to a school of preaching, they taught us, see if I can remember which one they used for us. I don't see, but this is a book called it's by Muncie, and I don't know what y'all have used, but this is Basics of Biblical Greek. I'll just show you that. All right. And what that is, that's beginner's Greek. That's like going into the English language, and generally most of these, it's like reading the old types of books, the old types of English books where they give you very short, concise sentences, and they don't really move beyond. I mean, they'll give you a lot of instruction on helping you get started in Greek. But believe me, I've had close to, I don't know, across the years on different levels, BA, MA, and then working with it through the doctoral program. I can't tell you the number of classes that I've had to take on Greek. And one of the biggest helps to me in that was this book by Daniel Wallace. Because then what I can do is I can look for a text I may be studying, and I can look in the back of that and see if it's got an aorist tense or something of that nature involved in it. Go back and read where he puts that into the different meanings of and the different usages of those of those words and of those tenses. Now, I'm not telling you that to say, well, what you've learned so far doesn't have any real meaning at all. I'm not telling you that. The basics of biblical Greek will get you through a great deal of help. But I'd like for you to remember that sometimes the way that they are placed together, a participle set along with alongside its main verb, I need to look at the time. I need to look at the tense of the main verb, and I also need to look at the tense of the participle that follows it, and understand that most of the time the participle's time period is actually with respect to the main verb's time period, though it may have different tense that is within it. It's a whole other study here. But the simplest way, and what I'm trying to do with you, to give you simple ways, especially here with the idea, whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be saved, to give you simple ways of showing that calling on the name of the Lord, according to what Ananias told the Apostle Paul, and may I say to you, this is then how Paul called on the name of the Lord. This is how an apostle called on the name of the Lord. This is how an apostle was told to call on the name of the Lord. This is how a person who becomes Jesus' apostle to the Gentiles, who will write the great and wonderful books on justification and salvation in Romans and in Galatians. This is how he called on the name of the Lord to be saved. And that's something that I always stress to whoever I'm talking to, because most of them want to take Paul's writings and teach faith only. And so I like to go back to the very person of Paul. I like to go back to the very time of Paul's conversion, and stress in that what it was Paul did to be saved and to call on God's name. And then ask the person, will you teach